Thank you for joining us today. My name is Nick Romitis. I'm the CEO of the South Carolina Realtors. And to celebrate Black History Month, I've invited some of our Realtor members to share their insights, their successes, their challenges as they've led successful real estate teams and real estate offices here in South Carolina during their careers. What a honor it is today. I want to introduce to you Keon Aldrich from Florence, South Carolina, my hometown. Go PD. I always have to plug my hometown. Nancy Johnson, welcome Nancy, is from Columbia, South Carolina. Corbin Millette from Charleston. Yolanda Taylor in Columbia, South Carolina as well. And Carmen Washington from Hilton Head. Why don't we do this real quick? Why don't you all kind of introduce yourselves real quick? Tell us your story about what got you into real estate and what opportunities did you have when you first started, or more importantly, what challenges did you run into? Keon, why don't you get us started?
Thanks, Nick. My name is Keon Aldrich. I am the broker, owner of PD Elite Realty here in Florence, as Nick stated. I first started in real estate. Actually, this year makes 18 years. Time flies when you're having a good time, I guess. And I've seen the good, the bad, ups and downs. But what got me in the business was, before I was a real estate agent, I was actually a bank teller. I don't think I've ever told this story, but I was a bank teller. And one of the well-known broker in charge and his wife here in Florence, they were my regular customers. So they only would come to me as their teller. And so one day they just talked to me about real estate, and they told me that my personality would be great for real estate. They didn't tell me I needed more than personality to be in real estate. But I started working with them and realizing how much I loved home ownership and the people that I was meeting. And it kind of took me out of a shell that I was in, but it made me grow up a lot. I grew up a lot in real estate. Like I said, I've been doing this 18 years. So just to see how things have changed over the years. So a couple of challenges that I faced was early on, just getting clients to trust me. For one, I was young, and then I was Black. So getting clients to actually trust that I knew what I was talking about. I used to have clients that would come to me and I would tell them or give them the spiel, but then they would call my broker behind my back to make sure I was telling them the right things. So I think that was one of the biggest challenges. And I still kind of face that being a broker with everything that's out there now, all the real estate shows, just the internet in general. I still kind of face that from clients still kind of second guessing me what I'm doing and if I know what I'm talking about.
Thank you, Keon. Corbin, why don't you introduce yourself?
Thank you for having me. My name is Corbin Millette. I am broker owner of Exit Realty Low Country Group in beautiful North Charleston, South Carolina. So my start in real estate came haphazard by accident. I grew up actually in the PD, little old Mullen, South Carolina. Lord have mercy. And my great grandfather was a carpenter. That's who raised me. So I spent all of my time as a kid in houses. If you see me now, you'd be like, wait a minute, that guy was on a roof. But yeah, I was on roofs. I was underneath and all through them, working on them, putting them together, building them, etc. Excuse me. My grandfather also did what I know now to be property management. He oversaw property for people. That gave me the bug. I got into real estate for personal reasons. I wanted to invest in real estate. I wanted to be a real estate investor. And I got the opportunity, saw a class, like, okay, let me take this class, which I did. And when I took the class, it dawned on me, wait a minute, you can help people do what you want to do and make money doing it, right? Okay, all right, so let's do that. So I got into the business haphazardly that way. Interestingly enough, I spent all my years helping other people do what I wanted to do, but didn't do it myself. So if I had to, I think the other part of the question you had, Nick, was, the challenges I faced getting in. I'll touch that, but also what I would tell my younger self. You want that one now?
Oh, we can hold that one for a second.
Well, good, no worries. So the challenges piece probably was more along the lines of, and I'm just be completely transparent and open here, convincing people of color that they could own a house. I'm in the market that I'm in, the areas that I serve, our market was hot in Mount Pleasant, which is a more elite area, if you will, of our metro. And people just kind of had this mindset that they can't afford Mount Pleasant, they couldn't buy. So that was probably one of the biggest challenges, getting people to understand, hey, look, you ain't got to buy Mount Pleasant, you can buy up here in North Charleston, Somerville, Laston, Goose Creek. And I ran these streets hard during my first years in order to establish that. And over these years later, it has paid off. So that is what got me into the business. And I tell people, I've been here now, this year makes 17 years for me. And I tell people I'm too stupid to leave it.
Thank you, Corbin. Yolanda, why don't you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure. Hi, everyone. I'm Yolanda Taylor. I'm broker in charge of Tailored Realty here in Columbia, South Carolina. And I had to smile because my beginnings is so much like Keon's. I actually started in banking as well. I was in banking for about 15 years. And again, I had clients that were coming in, and they were brokers, they were realtors, and they always seemed to have enjoyed what they were doing. So after I got married and started having my family, I wanted to stay home for a while. So we decided to purchase our first investment property. And when at the closing table, I looked at my husband, I looked at the settlement statement, I said, you know what, I think I could do this, because I wanted something part-time. Needless did I know, it was just a hobby if you're doing it part-time, but to make it a career, you needed to go full-time. And so thankfully, I was able to do that, and I'm really enjoying it. I started in 2004. Got my broker's license in 2007. And so just grateful to be able to help families and open their minds to knowing that home ownership is possible for anyone, if not today, someday, as long as you're disciplined.
Awesome. Thank you, Yolanda.
You're welcome.
Carmen, why don't you introduce yourself?
Okay. I'm Carmen Washington. I'm broker and owner of Signature Real Estate Group in beautiful Hilton Head. And they call me the godmother of real estate, even though I've only been doing it about 18 years. I actually started off, I was the owner and operator of several beauty salons. I actually had 3. And I had actually relocated to the Hilton Head Bluffton area back in 98, and then did that. And then I started real estate, honestly, through prayer. I was going through this part in my life where I was just enjoying, my relationship with God and praying. And then he just spoke to me one day so clearly and said, I want you to go into real estate. And at the time, I thought that, from a hairstylist to, a real estate agent was crazy, but and over the top, which was kind of crazy because my father was a contractor. So I don't know why I thought it was so different. And I used to actually write contracts for him back in the days when I was a little girl, but because he liked my handwriting. But so I got into it, and I didn't always get the support of everybody coming, forth. They was like, oh, you have what people of color call these growing hands, and it's a blessing to be able to do what you do. But I was like, I don't care what you said, I'm leaving. So I transitioned slowly into real estate. And then, so I've been in real estate. First, I started off as a real estate appraiser. And then I thought that was entirely too much paperwork for that little bit of money. So then I went into becoming a real estate agent. And thank God. And I've been a broker when I decided to open Signature. And so that's been actually 4 years now.
Awesome. Thank you, Carmen. And last but not least, certainly, is Miss Nancy Johnson. Now, Nancy, I kind of know your backstory a little bit because I've read your book, but why don't you tell everybody that's listening today a little bit about yourself?
Okay. It's great listening to all the others that are in the business, and a little bit about me. I'm from, even though we live here in Columbia now almost 40 years, I'm from a small town called Kingstree. So like Mullins, like Florence, like Charleston, it's still low country. I'm the oldest of 12 children, and I grew up in Kingstree, then moved to Florida. And my experience with real estate was that we moved into a low-income apartment building. And every Saturday morning, the landlord would come knocking on the door. And the rent was only $12 a week. And there were weeks when we didn't have it. And so I did that enough to know that I wanted to be the person on the other side of the door. I wanted to be on the right side of money. I didn't know it was called real estate at the time. So I worked for 19 years in the insurance field, moved from Connecticut to South Carolina. And as you would have it, in working for the company for 19 years, it got to the point, I got quite a few promotions, but it got to the point where they said, you've hit the glass ceiling. And I said, what do you mean? I'm barely standing up because I had been shifted around from one department to the other. And as they say, they used me until they used me up. And I was still only making $22,000 a year. So like Carmen, I sought the Lord and I said, Lord, if I'm going to work this hard, I think I should be able to make the kind of money that I deserve. So while other people were taking quilting classes, cooking classes, I decided that I would try to get my South Carolina real estate license. And my first license I got in Connecticut in 1978. So hitting the glass ceiling, making $22,000 a year, and then getting into real estate and realizing that there are times when you can make that in a month or in one transaction. I never looked back but to say thank you for pushing me so hard. And as far as the challenges, I would say when I came to South Carolina, I worked 1 year part-time at a firm in Connecticut. But when I came to South Carolina, there were very few agents that looked like me. Even with marketing, being the first one on the billboard, I didn't get confused with anybody else because nobody else was marketing real estate on the billboard. So the challenge that I had was I had to really start at the bottom. My listings were $40,000, $50,000, and it was quite a while before I got a $100,000 listing. So needless to say, I've been in this business almost 35 years in this business and 19 years in my previous company. But there were a handful of minority-owned companies. And I would say the challenge was, number one, when I got in the business, as one agent told me later, he said, I don't know what made you, a Black woman, think that you could enter a white male-dominated field and still win. He said, but I saw something in your eyes later, and I knew my answer. And so the challenge again was having people to be receptive to you. There were no coaches, there were no mentors. Nobody had literally blazed the trail for African-American female or male in the business. We had a few companies, no internet, no lockbox, no fax. We used a Rolodex. And how did we find out what the hot sheet was? There was a book that came out, a small one week, and then a large one like a telephone book the next week. And so I would say that those were the challenges that I had, but they were teaching moments. I think every challenge offers the opportunity for you to solve a problem. And so that's who I am. And that's how I got started into the real estate business.
That's an awesome story. And I would encourage everybody listening to go to Amazon, check out a copy of Nancy's. It's a story, I think, of determination, a story of faith. Nancy, one of the things that impressed me, that really the kind of a defining moment when I realized, I said, hey, this is who Nancy is the story. I think you were going for a job interview in Connecticut.
Yes.
And the weather, it was pouring down rain, and you were there early, and none of the other candidates showed up because the weather was so bad.
Right.
and you got the job, and I said, that is the story of determination, somebody that is just not going to give up. And that sounds very similar to everything y'all have shared here today. You know, that you made a decision, and you decided to move forward and make that dream happen. And I think it's safe to say that, Nancy, you're winning today, and all of you are successful in your fields and in your areas in the state. Interesting. So let's think about this from kind of a time travel perspective. All right. So we're here in 2021. We've survived pandemics. We're getting through the COVID, pandemic. We've made it through at least one recession in our career. Some of us have made it through more than one. And if you could go back in time and meet yourself when you were just starting, what advice would you give your younger self today? And Carmen, I'll start with you.
Well, I'm glad, because I was about to say, let me answer that. Oh gosh, yeah, I would tell. And actually, I've been blessed enough because my daughter also is in real estate, and she is a killer. She sold $16 million last year. So she is really taking it in Virginia Beach. So I have been really downloading into her, the younger self. But the biggest thing I would say would be mindset. You get a lot of negativity, as Ms. Nancy actually expressed earlier. It's just like this career, this field was basically kind of deemed as a predominantly white, older male, and then sometimes female industry. So coming in, I'm originally born in Miami, and so I have these gold teeth and stuff. So you know what I'm saying. So I don't fit the mold. I have long nails. I'm kind of over the top. So it was a lot coming in and trying to fit this mold, if you will, of what you should look like or how you should be. And for a long time, that kind of got into my head. But I'm naturally a go-getter, and I make things happen. So in spite of that, I just went on. So the mindset would be the thing. Even when you talked about us going through dealing with that recession, and I was in that as well. And I mean, we went from 2005, 2006, we were just partying down, having the most. 2007, then 2008 hit toward the end, and then just like boom. And it was like, oh, come on, it's Hilton Head's gonna come back. And it just kept on going down for a long time. And so everybody kept saying, well, nobody's buying. Except for there were a few people that said, well, if they're not buying this, they need to be buying that. So they shifted the way that they thought and what the inventory and the services that they offered. And I would definitely have gone into becoming a listing agent much sooner, rather than working with buyers. I definitely would have been a listing agent. And like I said, having the mindset to show people, and I probably would have done a lot more investing also. But like I said, those things, those lessons, if you will, when it felt like I lost, and I have gone through and have express those things to my daughter, and she's done very, very well, with that. So that would be definitely my thing, is just having a mindset with it. Even, now I was thinking when this pandemic started, we would hit another shift, because I came from Keller Williams. That's why I have kind of Keller Williams lingo. But I thought we would come from, we would have another shift, but so far it's been going up and up and up and up. But I still prepare my agents and tell them, because when you've been doing this for a long time, you just never know. But your mindset is like, if this, and I tell them all the time, if I throw you out in the water, you're gonna do one of the two. You're gonna sink or swim. And personally, I got to make it. So that's it.
Londa, how about you? What advice would you give your younger self?
One of the things I would, adding on to what Carmen has said, but one of the things I would share with my younger self is to delegate responsibilities. I think that I've learned that we try to do it all. Most of our personalities is such that, I'll speak for myself. It's such a controlling, like no one can't do it like I can do it. So I have to do it all. So I would tell my younger self, no, go ahead, delegate those duties that's not dollar producing, and you focus on what is. And I think that I would be able to find more success faster.
That's great advice. Something I certainly should take for myself. Corwin, how about you? What kind of advice would you give your younger self?
To my younger self, I would say start investing early. You get excited and caught up in helping other people. and you forget about yourself. You know, God gave us all a life of service to others. And, you know, I know all of us are here on this call are committed to that. But we can't forget about, you know, to be frank, filling our own basket as well, making sure that our own storehouse is, you know, in proper order. So I would
when you say investing, you mean investing in real estate and professional development? What do you mean?
I would say investing in real estate, professional development. I then put all the money back into class and education to learn how to do things and do things better and do more things. But investing in real estate early. That's what I would tell my younger self.
That's awesome advice. Nancy, you were pretty good, pretty big. You've had multiple careers. So what would you tell your younger self?
I would tell my younger self, just like Yolanda said, as far as delegating, I think that leverage is a great thing. It helps you out and it helps to elevate you to do other things. I would have definitely gone into systems a whole lot earlier when I discovered Keller Williams and the books, The Millionaire Agent, The Millionaire Investor. I was like, God, if I had had this, maybe 10 years ago, I could have really climbed some tall mountains. But also, I was one of the first agents in Columbia to put a team together. And before the recession hit, like you said, Carmen, we were soaring. In the 2 years preceding the recession of 2008, we were really like banging it out. But one thing about a team, and as I look back on hindsight, you've got to plant what you want to grow. And you have to cultivate it. And then you have to pull out the weeds. You have to prune it. You have to water it. And so it takes a lot of wisdom. And as the gentleman said from Charleston, we did acquire a lot of real estate. When the recession hit, we had 39 rental houses. But looking back, I would have made some of those multifamily, would have looked for quads and duplexes. But that is what my younger self, leverage, seek out the best partners, build the best team with care and systems. That's why other people can duplicate what it is that you feel that you can't delegate if you have the right system in place.
Sounds great. Thank you. Thank you, Ms. Johnson. Keon, what about you? What advice would you give your younger self?
I would tell my younger self not to be afraid to learn more about the business, not to be afraid to ask questions, and not to be afraid to read more. When I was a new realtor, as we call it, a rookie realtor, all I knew about was buying, selling property, listing property. I didn't know all the aspects of real estate. It was later on when I learned about the politics and, just everything that deals in real estate. Real estate is the umbrella, but there's so many other things that go up under that. And I didn't know that. I really didn't know it until I got involved because, like I said, again, all I wanted to do was make that money, list a property, sell a property. That was all the mindset I had. But I just wish that I wasn't afraid to ask questions. I was taught in real estate school that this is a dog eat dog industry. So nobody will help you. And so, being that was in my mind, I was afraid to ask anybody for help because I felt like, well, they probably won't tell me the truth because they don't want me to do better than them. So everything I learned, I kind of learned on my own or by watching other people, but not asking questions. So I would definitely tell my younger self to not be afraid to ask. Pick up those books and read those books that I didn't read, that I'm reading now, that I'm trying to play catch up with now. So, and Miss Nancy, I also have your book. So
All right.
I'm
Thank
reading your
you.
book. So just to read as much as you can about the industry and not just buying and selling, but everything that go as a whole, real estate as a whole.
Thank you. Thank you, Keon. So, some takeaways here certainly sounds like learning how to work smarter, not necessarily harder, investing not only in your education, your knowledge, but also building wealth is so critical, right? That's why we work for our children and our future retirement and those types of things. So those are all things that realtors generally are pretty bad at. They're bad at retirement planning. They're bad at looking ahead, because real estate, as all of you mentioned, does cycle up and it cycles down. And we have to make hay while the sun shines and prepare for those times when the market isn't as strong. And right now we're in a super competitive market. Thank you all for sharing those thoughts, and thank you for speaking about your faith. My faith is important to me too, and your willingness to share that, I think, is a great testimony. So the association is just starting to take some serious steps to address diversity, equity, and inclusion issues in the association, in our communities. I'm proud to announce that Keon Aldrich is going to be our first chair of SCR's new Diversity, Equity, and Inclusion Council. They're scheduled to meet in just a few days. And we're going to start tackling some, I think, important issues in South Carolina. How do we address the minority homeownership gap, for instance, that exists in our state? And we have a strong need to teach our younger generation how to build wealth, and home ownership is the first and sometimes the most important step that young families, young folks can take into building wealth for themselves. So let me ask y'all this question. I'll just open it up for anyone that wants to jump in. But what can or should the association be doing to encourage more people like you, more minority-owned businesses, more minority-owned or minority-led real estate teams? How do we encourage that growth in our industry? What thoughts can y'all share?
I would like to say, and probably to Keon, since she's going to be heading that up. I think that just like in school, they don't teach you about finances per se, unless you go into accounting. And so you end up right out of school and you get into debt, a ton of debt that you can't get out of. And so you end up educated and broke, or you're up over your head in debt. So I think that for minorities and for others, teaching people money management skills is very critical, because a lot of realtors get into the business and that $3,000, $5,000, $6,000 check is the largest amount of money that they, have gotten into their hands. They hadn't made that on a job in a pay period. And so the tendency is to buy, spend, and not invest. And I think that as minorities, that's one of the things you got to teach them, that number one, this is not a job. This is a business. And in order to build a big sustainable business, you've got to know how to manage your money. You can look back and say, I made $1 million and have 100,000 in your account. And it doesn't mean a hill of beans if you don't know what to do with the money, what comes in, what goes out. So teaching them, if they have the passion for the business, that doesn't mean that they come to the table knowing how to manage money. So I think that's important.
Thank you, Nancy. Any other thoughts?
Speaking on what Miss Nancy just said, you're actually talking to the younger Keon, because that was me. I didn't know. Nobody taught me. I just got into business. Again, I came from banking, so they always took my taxes out. They took everything out. I was used to getting money back at tax time, not having to pay money. So that was definitely a shocker for me. But and even with that, with the years that I was in there, when we hit that recession, I was looking around because I was lost, because I was the one used to spending every paycheck I was spending. I was in the mall, I was getting credit cards, I was doing everything because it was the most amount of money that I've ever gotten. I remember getting into real estate my first year. And just like you said, you left your last job making 22. As a bank teller, I was making 25 and I thought I was rich. So when I got into real estate, I said, well, if I make 26,000, I'm okay. And then that first year I made more than 26, I was definitely okay. And I was excited. So of course, that is definitely something that not only minorities, but just the first year of real estate agents, they need to learn that. That's one of the main things. I mean, even if it's in new member orientation or just anything, we definitely need to teach that as an association. Because if not, we're setting our members up for failure.
Right.
If I could
I
chime
just had
in.
a quick question. With this, we were talking about just members, or we talking about the general public so far as home ownership?
Well,
Also,
they're two different things, right? But they're related. Any thoughts on encouraging home ownership, or encouraging more minority-owned firms to grow and prosper in our state?
Well, let me just comment on that. So that's definitely a two-part question. And I agree with both Kiana and Ms. Nancy, definitely, because I came from the hair industry, as I said, the beauty industry, and I thought I was really balling out of control because I was making about $75,000 a year, and that sounded like a whole lot of money. And actually, I guess at 25, that is. But getting into real estate, it is different. It took it's a whole mindset shift and change and that kind of a thing. And yeah, you do hit the malls pretty hard, and then you go into extra stuff. But it's because I think as a culture with us, I mean, actually. Was listening to a gentleman, and he was talking about the gap between the Caucasian community as opposed to the African American. And so the money is like, and for the South, I think the average one, the North, the average one was making $100,000, whereas African Americans only making around $10,000 a year. So that's a big difference and a big gap. And when I came to this area, like I said, back in '98, the one thing I know, when I heard, again, people just talking in general, all the places they had gone and things that they had experienced, I was like, I didn't grow up poor, thankfully my parents had money, but at the end of the day, it was just like, it was a mindset completely different. It was like a whole thing. And like you didn't do, like certain things were in the box, if you will. So it is I think the thing for us, and this is what I actually started doing, and I did it all last year, and the year before last, I'm sorry. And I was very successful. I would hold homeowner workshops is what I would do, because a lot of times people were thinking like, oh, you have to put down 20%. You have to have a credit score of 750. You have to do this. You have to have all these assets. And I said, that's not true. So to me, it was like I was, if you will, like spreading the good news. So people were really surprised, especially when you have someone. I've sold homes to people who made $10 an hour. They didn't even think that they could own a house. So I feel like it's our responsibility as brokers and owners and agents, even, if you will, to make sure that we let people know that, one, you don't have to have 750 credit score. You don't. But I also make them very accountable as to what their credit. I said, your credit should be good. A lot of times you grow up and you heard, your mom and your grandmama said, well, I ain't got it. So if I ain't got, you ain't got it. Hang up on the bill collector. But that's a curse, if you will, that really needs to be broken. So again, I'm big on the mindset, because that's then is where your actions will follow. So that has been what I've been doing in this area so far as agents over here. It's just not a lot of us here in the South Carolina area. In the Hilton Head area. There's just not a lot of agents over here. I've been promoting and I've gotten several of my family members and friends into the business, but in general, there's just not, and they're not, the family is not even really here. Most of them are other places. So I think it's now, I feel like the agents of today are are really kind of opening the doors, and it's kind of glamorized as being an agent. So now I am personally in this area, I'm seeing more African American people definitely get into the field, because I think before that this felt like it just wasn't possible, that it just wasn't doable. That was just outside of where African Americans go, just to keep it, just to say just what it is. So it's just that those two together, that one, yes, you can do this, and yes, you can become a homeowner, and yes, you should definitely have investment properties. So I feel like we as the ones, the pioneers, if you will, we should be the ones that are out there as well, constantly preaching this message that yes, you can, literally.
Yeah, it's education. So for our membership, Nancy, Keon, Carmen all touched on it. We need to educate our members. We don't teach people in real estate school that it's really a business and how to set it up. I mean, they get through license law, they get through some general things, but they don't get into a delve into actually running a business. And when, Robert Kiyosaki, Rich Dad, Poor Dad, talks about the quadrants, and that's what I use to teach my agents and talk about the difference in being self-employed and a business owner. And we have to give people the opportunity. I think if we could, maybe, and this is kind of a very broad and random, but what if we had a class that said, oh, you want to be a broker? Here you go. Boom. And these are the things that you need to know if you want to be a company owner, and educate people. It's not cut out for everybody. I mean, everybody that's on this, podcast today, look, we've all had to cut our teeth, make our bones in different ways. And in turn, it has been extremely difficult. But many of us, forget, for the experience, there's things we would definitely, okay, I don't want to do that ever again. But at the end of the day, we did it with a commitment and with dedication. And if we could teach agents, you can't teach people commitment and dedication. They either got to have it or they don't.
No, that's right.
But what you can teach them is, okay, if you're committed and dedicated, let me give you this framework, and this will get you to where you might want to be. And if we could figure out how to do that for our membership, and then in turn, make sure people know, I mean, again, everyone touched on their faith. I promise you, there's not a single person that is on this call or at this level that has not had to have some real heart-to-heart conversation with God about it.
That's right.
I mean, there's some times that you want to cuss. I cuss. I used not to cuss when I started in the business. I cuss. I used not to drink when I started in the business. I drink now. I ain't have all this grade before I got in the business, but I have it now. So, but in the midst of me taking a drink or cussing, I still got to give thanks, because this is all a work that's beyond me. I know, that's and I beyond all us all. So if we could just do that, provide classes, education, and teach, I'll give the opportunity for people that want the information. So they're not, like Keon said, just out there and afraid to ask someone because they're afraid they're going to steer them wrong intentionally to derail their success to further their own. That ain't how this thing here works. We all got to work together. We all have to be collective. Our business is a cooperative business. We compete this much. We cooperate this much. Right. So we have to focus on this and let this go.
Yeah. Right.
That's awesome. Thank you. Yolanda, any thoughts from you on this topic?
I do, Nick. I much like what everyone else has said, it does go down to education. Going back to our original thoughts on the meeting, we were talking about how so many African Americans don't even think that they could have a home. So because we grow up and, our parents generally tell us, I can't wait until they get out of the house, until they turn 18, they get in an apartment and get a job. So that's putting that mindset in us that, okay, we have to, when we're 18, we get an apartment, not a home, and a job, and not entrepreneurship. Mm-hmm. So it all goes back to training. And so we have to get the same thing with the agents. We think, okay, now we're agents. We've arrived. We don't even know that we can be a broker. We don't even know that we can be a broker in charge. So I think having that information out there, and I think Corey may have mentioned just blasting it out. What do you want to know about being a broker? Just having those classes available and putting it in the minds of everyone. And it's not just on NAR to do that. That's on all of us. Kudos to Nancy. I remember going to one of Nancy's classes years ago when she talked about investment. I mean, she's always training. And that's good. I mean, and it's open to the community. It wasn't open just to a particular group. It wasn't open to a particular agency. So I think it's on us to go and make that extra step. We go out there and let people know, just like we're saying, you can purchase a home. We can say you can own your own business in real estate. It's just getting that mindset there for them. And while at the same time, I think one of the things that I have been in transactions we've been doing lately, the professionalism seems to be going down.
Mm-hmm.
While at the same time, I think we need to encourage professionalism in the industry, because if the truth be told, some agents just really will bring it down if they don't know what to do. So we just can't say do it. We need to also say how to do it.
Right.
It's simple things like, calling if you need to cancel a showing appointment, right?
Yeah.
I mean, people are, our phones are lit up with those types of complaints. Professionalism certainly is something that's top of mind across the state. Well, ladies and gentlemen, our time has expired this morning. This has flown by. I would love to invite y'all back and do this again very soon. I certainly have enjoyed our time together, and I hope today what we've accomplished, if nothing else, that we've inspired a young realtor, or maybe not so young realtor, maybe just a new to the realtor industry. To the real estate industry, to inspire them to take their career up a notch, to level up and say that, Corbin did this, Keon did this, Yolanda or Carmen or Nancy did this. Can I follow that example? Can I follow that lead? And y'all have all clearly shown that with hard work and determination, the sky is the limit. And I really appreciate all that y'all have done, not only for the industry, but all that you've given back. And I know all of you are very, very active in your communities and are seen as leaders, as servant leaders in your community. So thank you for all that you do. And with that, realtors, we're going to wrap up this podcast session. Thank y'all for tuning in today, and stay tuned. We'll have another episode coming soon. So thank you again, everybody. Take care. Have a great day.
Thank you. Bye, everyone.
Bye.